Welcome back, guys. Okay, so what I did since you last saw it, alright, we got the dirt flock all over. I went back, used the dropper and the same 50-50 glue water mixture with a drop of soap in it, and went back over all this. So the glue has dried and this flock isn't going anywhere. See, it's pretty hard. If you're gonna be doing terrain that's going to get a lot of heavy use, you really want to do that to flock. Put another coat after it dries real good. Put another coat of glue on it. Otherwise, you're just going to rub it right off when you handle it. Alright, so what I'm going to do now to kind of finish off the terrain base is kind of get some moss growing on these rocks. So I'm just going to use some medium green standard flock, and I am not going to use a runny glue mixture. I'm actually going to use glue straight out of the bottle because I want to be very specific about where I put this. I don't want it rolling around. So I'm going to use a crappy old disposable brush. Please don't use your Winsor Newton Series 7s to dip in glue. That would be insane. Use a crappy old disposable glue brush. That's what these are made for. Just get a little bit of glue and kind of dab it around where you want the moss growing. Now typically most of this will be growing on the kind of the top edges of the rocks. So you want to kind of concentrate there. Now if a little bit gets on the side, that's okay. We'll do that in nature. So don't worry about it. Now the other reason I wanted to put the green on here is because remember we put that red tint in the rocks, and green is a complementary color for red, so that's going to help kind of bring the piece together. So just use it sparingly. You don't want a lot. Just a little bit here and there. So I'll do this. I'm just going to dump the flock on, and then we'll come back and take a look. Okay, so I may have overdone it just a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. Alright, so I just covered it all over. There's not actually much going to stick, but it's just easiest to just dump it all over there. That's why I have this white paper. I take a big piece of white paper. This is like an old 11 by 14 sheet. And fold it in half in the middle. Put a crease in the middle, because then when you dump this, A, the white under it kind of helps you see what you're doing, and B, when you dump this all off, then it's easy to put back in the container and you don't waste a bunch of it. If you see errant stuff, just take a soft bristled brush and kind of brush the green off where you don't want it. It's gonna kind of stick in the brown, simply because it's gonna get into those crevices a bit. That's okay, just brush it down. It's alright if some of it's kind of still hanging there when you're done. A, nobody's gonna be looking that closely, and B, you would actually have moss growing in the dirt too. It doesn't just grow on the rocks, so that's alright. You don't want a lot of it there, but it's okay if there's a little bit. Just gather up the excess and dump it back into your container. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good with that little bit of green hanging around on the rocks. Now, we're going to want to do the same thing. Wait for this to dry. Give it a good 10 or 15 minutes for this layer to dry. And then take your glue mixture and just dab it on where the green is to solidify that. So we're going to let that happen. I'll put the green one, and then we're going to come back and think about how we're actually going to do the nest area here. Alright, be back in a minute. Okay, so I've just started kind of laying this out. What I'm using here is sisal twine. So what I'm going to do is just try to make a kind of a base, and then I'm going to build up some edge around it to make it kind of look like a nest. And then the eggs are going to sit in this, however I end up putting them in there, but I really have no idea how this is going to turn out because I've never done this before, so I'm just making this up as I go along. So basically what I'm doing is just cutting lengths of twine, the sisal twine like this, and then I unwrap it, untwist it, and kind of flatten it out. And then lay it down in there. And I'm just going to lay some out, and then probably just drop some glue in there to kind of hold it down, this first layer, and just make, I don't know, we'll see how it turns out. So that's what I'm going to do, is just build this up a little bit more, and then I'll put some glue down and then start building up an edge around it. So let me get some of that done and we'll come back and take a look. Okay, making a little headway here. So you saw I had the base down, and I just put some glue over that. And then I started cutting some lengths of twine and untwisting them until they look basically like this. So just separating all the strands and just kind of laying them around here in layers, so that you don't want to just drop a chunk, drop a chunk, drop a chunk. You want to kind of work it around in layers, like kind of like building a log cabin. It looks a little more natural that way, more like it's woven in. So then I took one of these and I stuck it in there and realized I had a problem, because if you can see, you could barely see the eggs when they were in there. Great in nature, camouflage is good, but on a gaming table that didn't work so well. So what I did is took some jute twine, and you can see this is a little bit darker in color, so it's more of a dark brown, well, medium brown actually, but it's a bit darker, and it's also much softer. It's more like when you separate the fibers, it's more like hair. So you just untwist them and get them all separated, and just kind of make a mat out of them. Now you don't want them all laying the same way, so I would just pull them all apart and just kind of mix them up like this. Okay, so I've just got a little mat of hair there, and stick them down in and kind of push them down, and the glue that's down in there will soak up through them and lay them down. Now that's going to do two things for me. One, it's going to set the eggs off a little bit better. Two, it's going to give me a softer base to sink the eggs down into, so that you don't see the edge sitting there. So it'll actually help kind of camouflage the fact that these are only half eggs. So it'll be a big help with that. So I'm going to go ahead and stick a couple of these down in there while the glue is still drying, and that'll hold those down. There's some other things I want to do, so we'll get this started, let this all dry up, and then we'll continue on with some other stuff. So we'll be back in a bit. So here we are with all this put in. After I put the eggs down, I put some more of this up around the eggs to kind of hide the fact that they're only half, so they look more buried in the nest. Next thing I'm going to do is kind of try to trim up some of this stuff that's sticking way out. You know, we don't want it nice and perfectly round, but I also don't want it just sticking out everywhere. So I want it to get kind of close into the nest. I figure they're dragons, they're intelligent creatures, they're not going to make a completely sloppy nest, right? So, I'll trim this all up. Alright, so there's the nest. I think that's good enough. Now, while I was putting these eggs down, my wife came by and said, "Hey, you ought to put a cracked egg in there like one of the dragons has already hatched." And I said, "Well, how in the world would I do that? These are plaster casts and they're not hollow." And she said, "I don't know, but do it anyway." And I said, so after thinking a little while, what I've done is I've taken my Dremel tool and hollowed out 2 of these egg halves. And I'm going to see, I have no idea whether this is going to work, but I'm going to see if I can just kind of break this kind of like an egg with a pair of pliers, and we'll see how that comes out. Now I'm going to save some of the pieces that break off to put them in the nest, so don't get rid of those. So I think that looks pretty good. I'll actually plant these in there and then put some of the pieces around like that. But what I want to do first, now that I've got it all broken, I want to go back and paint the inside. I don't want this stark white. So again, I'm just going to do some of the base it with the cream, and then actually, I may just base the cream and see how that looks. Anyway, let me do that and we'll be right back. So I ended up doing the brown wash on the inside too, because it just didn't look right without it, with just the cream. So anyway, I just stuck some glue on the bottoms, arranged the pieces a little bit, threw them in there, and I think I'm going to call this done. So there it is, Dragon's Nest. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you think I could have done differently or better, or ways I can improve this. Always love your feedback. Thanks for sticking around for this one. Bye-bye.